your foreground doesn't have to be determined by your background. It doesn't matter how you grew up, what happened, you can change your life. Of course, it might be a difficult process depending on how rough a childhood someone has had growing up, but the fact remains that we don't have to be limited by the same mindset. The thing is, unless we have new information, we're always going to do what we've always done because that's all we know. But with new information, it expands our minds. A man's mind, once expanded, never returns to its original size. When I look back, I marvel at myself because prior to 2007, I never really traveled out of Nigeria. And here was I didn't have any relatives, no friends in the UK. There was a number of things to get used to. Obviously, the weather. I'd never really thought it could get that cold. I used to say to people, yeah, well, here it's as if everyone is living in a giant deep freezer.
What advice would you give someone who is not just come from overseas to study or to make it in life here?
The single piece of advice I'll give anyone is for them to...
When did you start Shepha? Let's talk a bit about Shepha Properties and the vision behind that.
Yeah, so Shepha Properties I was co-founded by myself and my wife Elizabeth 5.5 years ago in 2018, and the idea behind it, a few years prior to that, I was working as a contractor with RBS, now NatWest. My wife was contracting as well. We had a decent amount of disposable income between us, and we're just considering what things could we invest in. We tried different things. We tried shares. We tried investing in a car business. It didn't quite work out, so we looked into property investment. This was around 2017, and we bought our first property, a one-bed flat in Edinburgh, and just during the whole conveyancing process, I stumbled on a free property seminar holding in Edinburgh, supposedly by Robert Kiyosaki. So I'd read his book, many people have done Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I thought, oh, wow, it's coming into the city where I live. I need to go and see it. So forwarded the invite to a number of my friends. Arv and I went along on the night. Unsurprisingly, he wasn't there because it turned out I was an affiliated property education company that was organizing it. However, what we heard that night, just really blew our minds and really expanded our minds, and I think gave us an insight into things that we'd more or less dreamt about, but really couldn't quite articulate. And that was about, getting freedom of time and the flexibility and passive income and financial freedom, and also just the current state of the UK housing market and the massive gap between the demand and supply and the perennial shortage. So we saw a great opportunity to make a difference, saw a great opportunity to create flexibility of time, to allow us to spend more time with our young kids and also do more things we enjoy. And just saw it as a great opportunity to be able to build, for the long term. So that's the primary motivation for Shepha Properties. But as we got into it, the model we operate, buying old properties, derelict properties, and transforming them into really high quality homes. That feeling of giving new life to what looked dead and empty, it created an intrinsic satisfaction that made us want to do this more. And beyond that, after the whole process is completed and you hand over the houses or the properties to tenants, just at least a few tenants that we interacted with, because many of our properties are managed by lessons agents. Just the joy in their faces. Those things, the the, the kind of satisfaction they provide goes beyond the economic rewards that you get from running such a business. So that is something that's just really continued to motivate us
Right.
in Shepha Properties. Yeah.
Okay. And at that point in time, why the property market for you, or by the property business? I know you said you tried stocks and shares, you
Yeah.
tried other things, but why was property sort of like your base out of all the bases you could choose?
Yeah, well, because for one, property is tangible. It's bricks and mortar. One. Secondly, because we saw there was huge potential there, because looking at the perennial shortage in the of the UK housing market, that meant, okay, this was a business that would be for the long term because of the huge demand and the shortage of the supply.
Okay.
So we saw there was a great opportunity there. And also in terms of long future value appreciation, unlike other investment assets, as long as you know make your purchase at the right location,
Yeah.
properties tend to appreciate in the long term. And just looking at when we looked at data of the past 50 years, property prices within the UK have maintained an upward trend, even in spite of the whole financial crisis in 2008, 2009. Even though, property prices fell, declined sharply then, they've since risen and even gone beyond their pre '08 levels. So that's number one. Then secondly, there is the saying, I'm a Christian, and there is a wise saying that a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And of course, you teach your children very sound values and all, but in terms of leaving an inheritance for them, I just felt having something tangible
I see.
to leave for them was also, something that really moved us towards property. And thirdly, I guess the fact that it is not just an investment; it has a direct social impact. Of course, I know if you invest in shares, you're investing in shares of companies that are making a difference, et cetera, et cetera. But you're one of hundreds, maybe thousands of people on that. But in terms of investing in a property that that a family has made their own home, that being having that opportunity to be able to literally provide a roof for someone's head, to provide a good quality, stable environment for them, which enables them, even the peace of mind and just the headspace to be able to plan their own lives. Yeah, I can't just see any other investment, uh, uh, class that comes close to it. So, these are the main reasons why we decided to focus on property investment.
I do have a number of questions around property, but I think we should perhaps go back to even much earlier before property or before the UK and talk a bit about your upbringing and childhood. Like you mentioned that your parents have had a big impact on you as a person. Could you please walk me through what your upbringing and growing up was like for you, and how, and if you could maybe give me a few pivotal moments on that journey to becoming the Niyi that's sitting in front of in front of me right now.
Yeah. I grew up in a loving home. My dad was a banker, and my mom.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, that's I just kind of followed in his footsteps.
Okay.
The first part of my career, my mom was a head teacher, and then later became um, uh, a local a council official back in Ibadan, in Nigeria, and I'm one of a family of seven. I'm the last born. So yeah, I had um, a very stable upbringing. Both parents are present, though my dad used to work away a lot, but he came home sometimes during weekends or during his annual leave. So I pretty much had, yeah, lots of love, and was brought up with Christian values. You know, in addition to just social values of hard work, preparing for the future, of believing in yourself, and of course believing in God, and yeah, I grew up in Ibadan, and went to University of Ibadan for my first degree in economics. And then after that, I moved to Lagos to begin my career. So obviously, making the move to Lagos, that was that was a significant change what I'd
Mm,
known, because yeah, there and then I had to find my own way in life, as it were. So, but I think I was ready for it, and I did a research, um, got a place with what used to be known as FSB Bank then, years ago, and for my National Youth Service, and joined Access Bank for moving to Guarantee Trust. I was in Guarantee Trust between 2004 and 2007, and then moved to the UK in pursuit of. 'Cause, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Guarantee Trust is a really great organization that people who worked there back then, at least,
mm,
prided themselves in being part of such an organization. But I wanted to, just had a desire to have a more global view
mm,
in terms of furthering my education, working in a global environment, engaging with other cultures, other people, getting to experience, how other people live, not just within the UK, but you know, in America, in Asia. And I figured, yeah, coming to the UK would give me the platform to be able to experience life and also further my career.
mm.
Um,
Right. Okay. And you mentioned earlier about one of the values I mentioned that was imbibed in you when you were growing up was believing in yourself.
mhm.
Um, could you talk a bit more about that and how maybe like your upbringing specifically impacted that part of your life?
Well, because my said my dad used to work away, so when he came home, part of what at some point I was the only one at home because my all my said I'm the last born, so all my siblings had left then to uni, or so others who were working, and was just having those occasional what you'd call fireside chats about life, his own experiences, about how his dad died when he was 20, and he was the first of, I think, eight children. Well, so, and he had to look after his siblings and his mom. So that really, really imbibed in him the importance of hard work, and the
Mm,
importance of, really, depending on God and also depending on yourself and ensuring that, you try your very best to whatever it was you set out to do. So that had an impact on me, and was it's something that has really pushed me on and been a great source of motivation throughout my life, whether I was going into university, because I applied for the course myself. My dad was away, and I just chose the course I wanted to do.
And what course was that, sorry?
It was economics.
Okay.
I studied economics because I figured everything, whatever other course you did, was within the economic system. So wanted to really just understand how everything interacted together within society. So that, and also, getting my first job, moving to the UK. For me, moving to the UK was, when I look back now, 16 years later, I just, I marvel at myself because prior to 2007, I never really traveled out of the country, out of Nigeria. And here was I didn't have any relatives, no friends in the UK. I was just coming all by myself in 2007. I remember September 18th, 2007, when I arrived Glasgow Central.
Wow.
I felt lost, figuratively and literally. Just wondering, what have I done to myself? But of course, there was just a number of things to get used to. Obviously, the weather. I'd never really thought it could get that cold. I used to say to people, well, here it's as if everyone is living in a giant deep freezer. Because, so the cold was there, the culture was there, getting used to the food. So there was just so many moving parts, and there were just many different things that I had to adjust to, and not having any support network at that point in time. 2007 was just made things really quite difficult. But what made that period really, really very easy was my fiancée, well, now wife. Then she was a great source of encouragement and support for me. She was still in Nigeria when I came, masters, and I think being able to step out of your comfort zone and take risks in the hope of a better future for yourself and for your nearest and dearest, I think has been underpinned by that value of believing, that with God all things are possible, and also just believing yourself as well, that things, if you push hard and do your due diligence and just have a firm belief, you can do things
Right.
you thought you couldn't do.
Okay. And talking about belief, both in yourself and in God, what would you say has been maybe a circumstance or a few situations that have challenged that belief? Like, where you were like, I used to believe in myself, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I used to say that I think the decision to come to the UK and come to the whole process itself was a very difficult one, said, because I didn't have any support network, and I had to find out everything by myself and just really get used to everything. I think the most difficult decision second to that was after I'd finished my master's program, because then the financial crisis was in full swing. So I'd left my country. I'd left a fantastic job, working with a fantastic boss, Lumide Gutwashe, and I'd come to the UK to study international finance. And at the end of that program, the financial sector was taking down the entire global economy down with it. So that was the scenario when I was coming to the end of my program, a master's program. So I had a decision to make, a very, I'd say, nearly agonizing decision. And that was, okay, do I go back to Lagos, Nigeria, where I knew a job, my job, possibly a promotion was waiting for me, or do I stay here in the UK with the financial crisis and layoffs becoming an everyday thing in the UK? So it was a tough decision for me, and yeah, I think one of the things that really just helped me compose myself and just come back to excuse me, that value of belief was that, look, even though it might mean starting from scratch, even though I don't know how things will pan out, I came here, to make a better life for myself and for my family. I wasn't even married then, but I thought about the future I wanted for my family. I thought, yeah, this was an environment in which I would want to raise my family. So, yeah, when that self-belief was challenged, I think those were the kind of thoughts that really gave me the courage to make the decision to stay.
Okay, and do you know what ignited those thoughts? Because I'm trying to just work out, because there's some people that might be listening right now and having this similar situation where they have their beliefs challenged. I'm trying to work out how you even got those thoughts in the first place. Was it you talking to people? Was it you reading books, or was it just because of the kind of upbringing you had, because of kind of person you are? Maybe you're a naturally resilient person. What was like the backbone of your response to that challenge? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things.
Okay.
Number one, it said, yeah, firm belief in God, belief in myself, which was shaking at that point, and also, yeah, just reading lots of books. And by then, I had a few friends, but the question on everybody's lips was the same. Are you staying or are you going back? But yeah, I guess having that foundation, the upbringing and the values that imbibed, and just really simple trusts that things were gonna work out. And I guess an acceptance that, okay, this decision means you're choosing the hard part, because the easy part would have been to go back to Nigeria to get carry on with my old job, get a and possibly a promotion. But staying was me actually charting new territory. That was me starting life afresh, starting anew, in terms of building a future for which I didn't really have any framework or comparison because of what was going on. But yeah, just had the firm belief that things would work out.
Right, okay. And you started afresh. And 15 years later, you are the director of Shepha Homes and
16.
Properties. Well, how'd that pan out? Let's talk a bit about UK and, moving to the UK and your growth in the UK. Could you please walk me through that experience from like your perspective, knowing that you're starting afresh, you didn't have anything in a sense in that position?
Yeah. Yeah, it was about just research. I think Google was my best friend.
How so?
Well, because all of the information, thankfully, I came to the UK with my laptop. So in my room, yeah, I just used to sit down and things that I didn't know, things that I had to get used to. Yeah, it was just Google was my go-to just to find out the information. So yeah, and because there was just loads and loads of information there. The International Development Office in the school was also helpful, especially in the early days of uni. But yeah, principally just doing a lot of personal research and also understanding that I'm in a new culture, I'm in a new environment, with a new people, and I myself would need to make some adjustments, some changes to my mindset, to my outlook, to my engagement. Obviously, my principles and values, those are very well set, but just in terms of everyday living, I knew I also had to change. And yeah, I guess change and character development are usually fought in the furnace of difficulty, as it were. So I think some of the challenges that I had, making all those adjustments, making the changes, and then yeah, just simply not having family or close network to lean on. This meant I had to lean on God, lean on myself, and yeah, my um, my wife Elizabeth, my was my fiancée then. So that helped the process of you know growth and getting out of bed every day and pushing ahead.
Mm, all right. Okay. You've mentioned Elizabeth a few times now,
Yeah.
and how she's been like a pillar of support for you. I thought we should maybe talk about her as well. How did you both meet? First of all, let's even start from like the the beginning of the beginnings.
Yeah, well, we met. She's my friend's sister. So I went to uni with her brother. We're both in class, very good friends, and yeah, I'd gone to visit him after uni. I'd gone to visit him at home. He wasn't there, and she kindly came to sit with me and had a really good conversation. And when she left, I thought, oh wow, that's a very smart young lady, and that was it. So it was only a few years later, when I was thinking of settling down. I'd applied to come to the UK a few times, and the visa had been rejected. So at some point, I'd actually just even um, you know concluded that yeah, maybe it wasn't meant to be. I was just gonna live my life in Nigeria. So it was at that time, 2007. I lost my mom, and was just a bit of a um, yeah, it's a very sad, difficult period for me then, and I was yeah just looking to settle down, and yeah, one thing led to the other. She and I got reconnected um, again, and yeah, I just really found her someone who is a great person to chat with, and used to talk a lot and just have conversations about different things. She's very interesting personality. So, and yeah, that's how I just figured, okay, I think I found the person I want to spend the rest of my life with.
And this was how many years after that first fateful day?
So probably six, well, about 6-7 years actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And in what ways would you say? In what ways has she been that support or pillar of strength for you, particularly in the tough times?
Well, certainly my first year here when I was studying, obviously she was working there. Yeah, she used to encourage me a lot. We spoke every day, sometimes twice a day. Yeah, I used to tell her, she was the listening ear and just a very encouraging person to me during that period. And yeah, throughout the journey here in the UK, from founding Shepha Properties, she's always been an incredible support.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier when you're talking about like challenges, and you mentioned, faith in God and also that belief in yourself. And you mentioned now about the period where you lost your mom and how that was quite a dark time for you. I'm so sorry to hear about
sure.
that as well. How did you get through that phase? Because it sounds like quite a number of things were going on. You are, trying to get out of the country. What was that experience like for you, if you don't mind me asking? And how did you, get through that phase?
Yeah, I've been trying to. In fact, I'd had an admission to Glasgow Uni since 2003. But because I couldn't secure a visa, I kept deferring the admission. And by 2006, I think I'd come to the conclusion that it wasn't going to happen. So, and prior to that, I literally put my life on hold. I was living with my brother. I didn't make any significant purchases because in my mind, I was like, look, I'm only here temporarily. I don't want anything to tie me down. But by 2006, when that wasn't happening, moved out of my brother's house, secured my own flat, just bought a car, and just determined to settle down in Nigeria. So I think I was already just living that life when the my mom passed away. Yeah. So it was because I was closer to my mom growing up than my dad. So I really felt her absence in the period. How I got through it, just taking one day at a time, and just believing that, it's going to be in a better place. So it gave me hope, and also just wanted to make me, settle down even more.
All right. Taking each day at a time and just doing your best with each day as it comes.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe towards the end, we'll talk about like your reflections on that period as well in your life in general. But back to the UK, you finished uni. What was the process of getting a job like, after uni? Was that, fairly easy for you? Because I know several international students tend to complain about the difficulty of that process due to the simple reason that most companies need a visa to be able to work for companies, etc. What was that experience like for you?
So there was a theme just from many of the companies that rejected your application, and that's for lack of UK experience. And that became a bit frustrating because you're like, okay, well, unless I actually get to work in the UK, how am I going to get this so-called UK experience? I've got good experience where I'm coming from in terms of and also in terms of good educational background. But yeah, I guess that's probably part of many organizations' consideration in terms of visa sponsorship and all of that there. So it wasn't it wasn't really easy to secure a job for that reason. But I got a part-time job whilst I was still at uni in Barclays. So when I finished, I was able to secure a permanent role with them. But yeah, getting that part-time job, I think for me was yeah, quite challenging. Yeah, the Barclays job, because I was already working part-time, as an easy transition into the company there. But yeah, the initial period was definitely very, very difficult.
Right. Okay. Okay. And from there, because you already had that entrance into the industry, you were able to move on to other roles.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a foot in the door. But a few years where I was working, I think the center was short. We're going to make the people there redundant. We had to reapply. So I reapplied for a new role within Barclays Wealth then. So it was got an analyst role, and then I was moved to Barclays Capital, moved to a project at that time. They're looking to transfer some of the processes, to migrate some of the processes, the back-end processes from London up to Glasgow. So I was part of that program, part of the project team, and used to commute to London on a weekly basis for about 12 months, just to understand some of the processes there, and set up the desk here in Glasgow. So that was a really good experience. I think the initial, once I was able to get through the initial hurdle of securing the first, my first role, then that was the foot in the door, so to speak, and it made moving ahead much easier.
Right. For some reason, as you were talking, I could picture a random international student listening right now that perhaps is in where you were. What advice would you give to someone who is not just come from overseas to study or to make it a life here, and they're starting afresh? They don't really have people. What advice would you give to them to make the most of their time here?
Well, I'm not making a promo or a plug for them. The single piece of advice I'll give anyone is for them to join Black Professionals Scotland. I think it's a fantastic organization that really focuses on helping international students, people of ethnic minority, just to settle into the country, build a solid network, and also be able to get into their career progression very quickly. That was something that was obviously non-existent when we came in 2007. I think it's a fantastic initiative, and it makes the journey a lot easier for those who are coming now. And I know that was on the back of the journey and the similar experience that Enoch, who's one of the founders of the organization, that's part of what prompted him to set up the organization, because he also had a difficulty during his early days. So I think that would be my advice for anyone coming in, either as a student or as a professional. As a student, it could still link up because I know they create internships with in different organizations. So.
Right. Yeah. Because community is important. I think people really understand the value of community until they're in a place where they don't have the community they used to have, and then they realize all of a sudden, oh my goodness, I've been taking this for this for granted. So yeah, definitely been part of a vibrant community like BPS. And for those listening, we interviewed Enoch in one of the episodes, so please check that out as well. But the question, I've got just two more areas I'm just to touch on briefly before we wrap this conversation up. And one is around the power of mindset. So you mentioned, you may not have realized this, but when we started this conversation, you mentioned you attending the Robert Kiyosaki affiliated event and how that sort of like changed your mind or improved your mindset. And you also mentioned how books as well and research Google has helped you in improving your mindset. And Enoch, who you actually just mentioned, I think said on the episode we had him on, either on that or on something else, about how he was really inspired by your big picture thinking or big mindset thinking about even things as you call it as trivial, for lack of a better word, or things as simple as buying a house. It's just being around you helped him shape his mindset to a much more bigger perspective, a bigger vision. What's the question I have here? Okay, the question I have here is this. What things would you say have helped you, impacted the way you think? And on the back of that, if you could contrast how you were after you got that shift with how you were before you got that shift. I know it's a compound question, but you get what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. Well, Enoch is very kind in saying all those things. I think one of the greatest blessings we can be to other people is if either because of what we've done or what we're trying to do or decisions we've made, if someone else is inspired by that, I find that really very fulfilling. And I guess for all of us, that's part of why we aspire and work really hard in the hope that we not only improve our own lives, but when people see the challenges that we've been able to overcome, that just really inspires a belief in others as well that, okay, well, if you can do it, then that means I also can do it. And especially in an environment like this, seeing someone, excuse me, who looks like you, doing things that maybe one might have previously thought were impossible, I think just breaks that, limitation on people's mindset. For me, I've always just been drawn to biographies and autobiographies of people who've done great things, and through a wide range of things, whether it's politics or religion or in sports, and just really understanding the fact that there are consistent themes in all of those stories about persistence, about resilience, about determination, about having a vision of a better future, about goal setting, about hard work, about having the right values, and just about not giving up. And I'm a big promoter of reading books. So you asked a question previously, which the book itself has just come to me now. And interestingly, the book itself, you asked me which book I'd read that had made most impact on me. It's actually The Big Picture.
The Big Picture.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard that. So it's about Benjamin Carson.
Okay.
She's an American brain surgeon. And I think he was one of the first if not the first. Yeah, you'd have heard the story.
Yes, gifted
Indeed,
hands.
Gifted Hand. So yeah,
Indeed.
I read the big picture before I read Gifted
Right,
Hands,
right.
because back in Nigeria, I can almost see myself in my brother's house in my room in Ikoyi then with that book, Big Picture, and just reading through it. And I mean, you know his story so well about how, yeah, his very life is a life of transformation, as a transformational journey from someone who used to be regarded as maybe brain damaged to now actually becoming a very celebrated, you know,
Neurosurgeon.
neurosurgeon. So reading books like that and seeing that, okay, there can actually be it doesn't and I think it was in the book where it was in that book that it said your um, foreground doesn't have to be determined by your background.
Oof.
So that means it doesn't matter how you grew up, what happened, or you can change your life. You can transform your life. Of course, it's going to be a difficult process depending on how rough a childhood someone has had growing up. But the fact remains that we as human beings, we are the ones who have been given that gift of actually being able to change our lives. We don't have to be limited by the same mindset. But the thing is, unless we have new information, you know, we're always going to do what we've always done because that's all we know. But with new information, it expands our minds. You know, the saying, a man's mind once expanded never returns to its original size. So I'm a big advocate of, traveling, exposing yourself to new environments, new thinking. But in lieu of that, books, because books give us an insight into new worlds. It gives us inspiration from the experiences of people who have achieved great things in spite of whatever limitations they had growing up. And when you read such stories, when you read about the Wright brothers and how all the challenges they faced in terms of people not believing that man could fly, and today air travel is one of the most popular forms of travel. So when you see people do impossible things like that, yeah, it inspires you. It inspires you. And I said, read widely, read both fiction, not fiction books. But for anyone looking for inspiration, for anyone looking for motivation, yeah, just reading biographies and autobiographies of people you admire, and could be from different sectors. Some of the books that I've read as well, about Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, about Shoe Knight. Shoe Dog. The guy that founded Nike. So, and those stories that said they have a recurring theme, and when you look at people like that who are successful, and you see that there's similarities in them, it gives you that inspiration that you also can follow in their path. Someone that I follow closely now on LinkedIn is Stephen Bartlett. He's on Dragon's Den, and also he's the he does a podcast.
This
I'm
podcast
sure you
actually is modeled after Stephen
model
Bartlett's
after
podcast.
yeah, that's fantastic. So he's someone I follow closely, and you would see again from many of the guests that he interviews, a lot of the stories are very inspirational because you see where the guests have come from. Some of them had very, very rough beginnings, but then you see what they've gone to achieve. And in between that, at the different struggles, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, the mental health issues and various challenges. But then you see how many of these people come out on top. And those stories really inspire. You mentioned earlier about everyone has a story, and I think that's a very, very important statement, because we are all unique, and every one of us, no one can take away our life experiences, which more often than not are unique to us. And I think that's why it's important for everyone, just to be able to share their own experiences in order to inspire others. So be inspired through the books and the podcasts and all, and be motivated to push the boundary and aspire to do great things yourself, in the hope that, not only reaping the rewards of your hard work, but beyond that, being able to inspire even people that you do not know, or people you won't even come into contact with, who get to hear your story, who get to read your story.
100%. Oh my goodness, I've got too many questions, but we are running out of time now. So I will slowly bring this episode to an end. But there's something you said that I think was just so impactful, and that's this idea of exposing ourselves to the right information, the right resources, the right stories, because that impacts us as well. So I remember I was watching this video interview of Steve Jobs. If I recall, it's still on Amazon Prime, and some of these interviews that they found that maybe it was missing a few years ago, and they found it recently or something. And he was talking about how, of course, we know Steve Jobs has his eye for great taste and design quality and all of that stuff. And the interviewer asked him about, well, how does someone develop this taste? So, for example, I don't have the kind of taste you have, but how do I develop this taste? And his answer was something along the lines of, okay, well, but if you're in the environment, if you try and be in the environments where this kind of things are normal and natural, very slowly it starts to influence the way you think about life, the way you think about design as well. And it really struck me. And hearing you again speak about the power of other people's stories and exposing yourself to their own stories in order to challenge us and to expand our mindset is very insightful. So thanks for that. Shepha Properties, I think we'll end with that before we do the overview. What are some of the challenges you've had building your own, business from scratch?
It goes back to that thing around belief. Convincing people that, okay, we had the right knowledge, we had the right information, because property business is a very capital intensive business. We've done the 5.5 years, we've successfully delivered about 25 projects of various sizes. And our latest project was a commercial conversion of an old storage space that had been left empty for about 10 years in the heart of Edinburgh City. And we converted it into a 2-bed, 2-bath, really high-end property. And the challenges we've faced have been around, especially in the early days, getting started, finding the right property, and I think that was another really significant point in my life, because I was leaving what I'd known all my life, all my career, and moving into totally not just a new role, but a completely different sector. And all I had was my training, which was a great thing. It's something I advocate. I know there's a debate about whether you need training or you can do research yourself. But personally, after we bought that first property I told you about, our plan was to save up and buy another within 12 or 18 months. following that training, bought 6 within the same period. So I tell people that, well, it's paid for itself because he really accelerated our progress. So yeah, finding the properties, raising the capital, and executing the project, because then again, it was a completely different life I'd moved into. I'd always worked in the corporate environment, so engaging with tradesmen, engaging with different people, with solicitors, with brokers, with architects. That again was a completely new experience for me that I had to get used to. But overall, yeah, just being able to, yeah, find the right deals and making the right decisions about where to invest, what to invest in, what type of property to invest in. Yeah, are challenges that we've learned to, get accustomed to and actually have a good handle on as time progressed.
Right. And random question, feel free to answer this question. We can cut it out in post-prod. Was that all cash? Like you bought 6 properties with cash that you had saved? Because I'm thinking here, and I'm like, wait, what?
No. But so that's the thing. In terms of trading, just really opened our eyes to how you can finance property purchases through commercial loans, through bridging loans, and of course, anyone who's listening, who's thinking about it, I'm not a financial advisor, so anyone considering that, just to speak to your financial advisor or accountant. But that's how we did it, and also through the power of networking, where we got connected to a few lenders, and especially Together Finance, who have been a main finance partner, the journey finance several of our projects. So that having the knowledge that there are other ways you can finance fund these property purchases beyond your own savings, and that's the power of leverage, and that's part of what really
right. And it is this sort of like knowledge that training exposed you to that you didn't know before.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we've said earlier, we've launched our own soft training. We've done a soft launch of our own training outfit. We call it 3E Learnings, and principally our aim is to equip people, with the right knowledge and information about property investment. Secondly, to really empower people, using our examples from our own projects to see what is possible in terms of the number, in terms of the complexity, and in terms of the final product, being able to empower people that they also can do it. And thirdly, just really encourage folk who are looking to get into property, and providing that support beyond the training, and just working with them to ensure within 6 to 12 months of attending the training, they would have been able to secure their first investment property.
Gotcha. And is this training still open? Because I'm thinking some people might want to, be part of your training. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have next, it's an all-day training session coming up on the 14th of October, and registration is still open, but we're looking to close that by next week. So, but it's something we try to run on a regular basis. But the next one is 14th of October.
Okay. Unfortunately, this podcast will not be out by then.
By then. But
we'll put the link to Niyi's company in the show notes, everyone. So I'm sure you post information about the trainings there as well.
Can do that.
And we'll definitely do that. Anyways, we are just at time. I'm sure Cam is in the background thinking, what is Samuel doing? Final section is on reflections on your life story. As you look back on your journey, what are you most grateful for?
I'm most grateful for my health. Actually, just thinking about it. Um, and I'm in the fourth decade of my life, and I can't recall, certainly not in my adult life, having spent a day in the hospital, lying in the sick bed. So I'm really, really very grateful for that because your health is almost the foundation of everything else. Your energy, whatever inspiration you have, if you don't have sound health, it just severely limits what you can do. So I'm very grateful that yeah, I've um, I've been blessed with very sound health.
Mm.
Um, I'm very grateful for a loving family. Spoke about my wife and my two children. Very grateful for people I spoke about earlier. My spiritual, my business mentor, and MFHP family. So MFHP is a charity that I and a few friends started about 10 years ago. The full meaning is Made for Its Praise, and it's a musical charity, and we hold 4 events every year and meet on a monthly basis just to hang out, food, fellowship, and dance and music, and all part of um, having that close knit support network. So I'm really grateful to be part of um, such a group. And finally, I'm just really also grateful that um, through Shepha Properties and through our other companies, Pearl Springs, that does short-term lets and 3E Learnings, the training program, um, and can contribute to tackling the housing shortage in the UK,
Mm.
one family at a time. And that's what we're looking. That's the vision for Shepha Properties to be able to do that, expand. The work we're doing.
Yeah.
We currently provide homes for about 14 families across Scotland now, and want that to become 140, 1,400,
Mm.
but one family at a time.
Right. Okay. And you spoke earlier about like the impact of your mom on your life. Do you want to just put a few words to describe your mom's legacy, the impact of your mom's legacy on your own life, in like appreciation of her as well as a person?
Yeah, just her closeness and her encouragement to me, and also just really being interested um, in my well-being and what I was thinking, and providing a lot of advice, especially when my dad wasn't around. Um, so it was good fun to be with. Um, had a few good laughs together. So yeah, really grateful for her life impact on me.
Absolutely. Two more questions. If the Niyi that came to the UK a couple of years ago, I mean, how many years ago now? Like 16?
16, yeah.
16 years ago, came to you for mentorship. I was like, I've just landed right now, knowing everything that you now know.
Mhm.
Would you tell him to do anything different or anything specific that you've not done?
Um, Probably say for him to reach out more or reach out earlier to people and try and make connections. I think when I came, I was just really head down, heavily into finding out information, on Google and all. But sometimes just um, networking, it's amazing because, again, going back to life stories, because people have unique experiences and unique stories, and the information you're trying to find online just by interacting or engaging with a few people and the right places you might be able to find. So that's definitely something that I'll say to someone who's just coming in. And of course, I think BPS is the answer to that in any case. And also, yeah, just try and enjoy and take in the city you are in. I think I was just really very focused on my academics and just trying to find my feet as well. So it was usually my room, class, library, in fact, my room. So I'd say, you know what, yeah, do that. Of course, it's important to focus, but also just try and, um, you know, uh, say don't just pass through city, let it pass through you, and yeah, enjoy it.
Awesome. And if your life was a book, what would its title be? Given all your experiences, your aspirations, your goals, struggles, challenges, what would your life story look like if it was a book?
What it will look like, will be, I aspired and perspired in the hope of inspiring one or two people to make better decisions for their lives.
He aspired and perspired to inspire other people.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, if you people see a book in the next coming months or years with that title, know where you heard it from. You heard it from here. Thank you so much, Niyi. It's been such an honor having this conversation with you. Thank you for your time. Is there anything, perhaps there's a question I've not asked or something you'd like to tell our audience that I've not gotten to ask because of this short time that you'd want to talk to our audience about?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just about you, Samuel. I think, yeah, the Stories That Shape Us, I think it's a fantastic initiative that you've started. I know there are a number of other people you've interviewed, and making these stories accessible for people, I think, is a very important work that you're doing, and something I would greatly encourage you to continue on, and something I'll encourage the listeners, to check out all the different episodes, because these stories are unique, and I'm sure they're going to resonate with people in different ways. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. You're very kind, honestly. Thanks for the kind words. So thanks, dear listeners. We are now at the end of this show. I will post in the show notes Niyi's social media handles. I know Niyi is quite active on LinkedIn. Will be in the show notes, and also his Shepha Properties as well would post the links to the website. I know people might have a number of questions, but they have contact details on their website. But thank you so much once again. For you, dear listeners, please, if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe and do share this episode with someone else, and leave a comment. We would like to hear your feedback. But until next time, I'm your host, Samuel Agbede, and I hope you have a great time, as we like to say on Stories That Shape Us. Discover the transformative power of stories. So share your stories with other people. Listen to other people's stories, and you might be shocked at the inspiration that you might generate from that. But thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day. Bye.